Seriously?
The meeting's called to order. Welcome, everyone. Barbara, could you please call the roll?
Okay, we have Commissioners Parkray, Sales, Noonan, and Moss present.
Thank you. I think you're all aware that it will be broadcast at some point on Channel 35. I wanted to mention that we will not have a second meeting in August. Our next scheduled meeting will be the first week of September. And that brings us to the General Manager report.
Thank you much, President Sales. One of the items that the only item that I don't have any separate items here other than getting right into the matter of the zero rate action presentation that we discussed. So before I get into that, and we've had this, by the way, posted, the presentation here, we posted it Friday end of day, so try to get some information out not only to our Board of Commissioners but also to the public in advance on this. We try to do that when we can. Sometimes we're not able to. But I think prior to getting into this, just as a recollection on behalf of the for the board here, at a meeting back in July, you had requested that you had adopted a budget, and it was what I would condition really a provisional budget that gave us our plans for this current fiscal year, which started July 1. And as part of that effort, we had included in there an assumed moderate level of rate adjustment in both water and in power. And not to go into a lot of detail right now, but over the past almost 2 months, we've had some 21 presentations out in the public regarding our rate increase consideration process. And that has two pieces of it. There is a basic business needs case associated with the changes that are principally associated with regulatory mandates and what I would really consider inadequate, frankly, but still non-trivial amounts of dollars that go into our reliability improvement programs on the power system and our infrastructure replacement on the water system. But many other items that are not included in that are of a strategic investment level. And I'm not going to go into all of that. We've talked about that before. The point is, the reason for bringing that up is we, in our budget, had assumed those basic business need levels, or levels very, very close to that, would be included in that. You as a board asked that we get back to you to advise you, and pledged that I would, what would be the consequences if we did not have those rate adjustments, and what are the consequences of a zero rate action by this board? And what would it mean with respect to our budget? What things would come out? So that's the purpose of our discussions here today. Just as a further reminder, that basic level case, assuming that we did a rate adjustment that became effective November 1 of this year, would be about an average across all customer groups, about 4.2% for water and about 5.9%. I think we rounded that up to 6% in our public presentation for across the board average for power. The package before you provides an overview of what happens if we don't do that, and we don't do anything at all. We would be living with the current rates that we have today. But I think one of the things that we had talked about was whether we might actually have earlier in our plans and discussing our rate consideration, we had talked about the prospect of having a board action on rates in August, and we're not proposing that, and I want to explain why. As I indicated, we've had over 21 public meetings. I've been at every one of those 21 meetings. We've had our senior management at every one of those public meetings as well. And we've had some really good response to that. And not only have there been public meetings out there, we've had hand markup surveys on the preferences for those different strategic investments. We've also had an online survey, and we're still getting input on that. We received something like 1,300 surveys so far. And we're sorting through that still, and we're still getting more coming in. We also have seen that City Council is moving forward, albeit more slowly than I guess I would personally like, on bringing forward a ratepayer advocate to review what the department's rates are. That has been an issue that has certainly come up in some of our public meetings, and a few of the council members have expressed concern about that as well. So we are still getting information, trying to address the information, trying to get a better handle on the schedule, trying to work with council as best we can on that. We have also, you'll recall, about April time frame, we went through some adjustments to our budget and our costs going forward. And we cut some, estimated at the time, about $440 million over a 3-year period. We're actually doing better than that. We're a little bit ahead of that. We've been continuing to be on top of our costs. Our head count is a little lower than expected, so our hiring freeze is working a little better than expected. Not hugely, but marginally better. And we've been cutting costs everywhere we can. So that's bought us, a few more literally weeks compared to where we expected to be. So I believe that we're in a position that we can not have to go forward quite as quickly as we had planned, but nevertheless, it's something we need to do, because as we'll see when we go through this presentation, having no action for the course of this fiscal year is extraordinarily troubling, and not something at all that we would want to do. So while I don't have an exact time frame for our rate adjustments going forward, because we want to get some more input and want to deal more with council, we will be getting back to you on that. We clearly cannot let months, many months go by without a rate action, because otherwise we're at a point where, in effect, we are on the path that we're talking about here, and we have to plan accordingly on that. So we'll make some additional financial adjustments. We'll be making some of the cuts that we're talking about here today, and hopeful not in a situation where we need to make all of them for reasons I think will become evident as we go through this. What I'm providing here is kind of a high-level summary of the actions. There's a fair amount of detail in here, and for every item that's in here, there is a whole family of additional details, line item by line item, contract by contract, action by action, program by program, should there be a desire to drill into some of these further. And these are what I determine a zero-rate action. And I make a distinction between that from a zero budget, because there are some interesting consequences of this board and then ultimately the council taking no action, because it has some interesting consequences that I'll explain. So I'm trying to use this to provide an analysis that gives you some context for why we do believe strongly that we need to take a rate action this fiscal year. When we went through it, there were some kind of guiding principles that we used in establishing the budget that we provided to you and that you acted on earlier. There's number one, indicated before, we have legal requirements, permit requirements, compliance requirements across the board in both water and power that have specific actions and specific timelines. And then the consequences of not meeting those are either fines or criminal penalties. We have governing memoranda of understanding with our unions that have specific obligations associated with how quickly you can make changes and the extent to which you can make changes at all under the current duration of those contracts. We have specific financial metrics that you as a board have adopted in the past that lay out specific planning targets and financial performance metrics that we have adopted, and not just in a vacuum, but also tied to what rating agencies expect of us and what our peer utilities in the industry against whom we're benchmarked. And then also have an issue of making certain, and this really is kind of probably first and foremost, to provide reliable level of both water and power service. And I guess I'd like to point out that taking a zero rate action pretty much violates principles 3 and 4. This last two that I mentioned out here, if we did nothing for the course of the rest of this fiscal year. This is a piece of a presentation that I think you've seen before when we compared our last year's budget on the left here being try to make sure I don't hit anybody in the eyes with this laser. Fiscal year 10-11 that just ended. On the water case, I mean, we're about $805 million for our annual revenue requirement, call it budget, if you will. This fiscal year that we're in right now, if we're meeting, again, just that basic business needs case, we're at about almost $890 million. That black line across the top there is the amount of revenue that we would have coming in if we kept our rates where they are at present. You will see that they decline, which we'll get into in a little bit in a minute. The gap there between that top of that bar and that line shows you that's a dollar gap. So we're under collecting, and that's the shortfall in revenue, and that's the problem that we have in the water. Power, and again, this is something which you've seen. We've actually shown it for multi-years, but just looking at this next fiscal year, just as a reminder, the only budget that you have adopted is the one for the current fiscal year that just started July 1. We're actually in the same sort of comparison here. We're about $3.1 billion for the last fiscal year that just ended June 30, and going up to almost 3.2 in this current fiscal year. And we were, as this line shows, actually under collecting last year. That is, we were collecting less revenue than what our annual costs were. And it's kind of okay to do that on a short term if you know you can make it up, as long as you don't get too far behind. We start getting further behind, as you can tell, on this if we have no adjustments in this current fiscal year. So to take a look at that, at what would be the implications of the zero rate action, we looked at two important steps. First determine what's the total amount of dollars that we need to deduct from that projected budget that was reflected in both those FY 11-12 bar charts that I just showed, and see what do we need to cut, and then how do we best get there. And when we do that, I think it's important to recall that capital dollars and operation and maintenance, or O&M dollars, are not the same when you make a cut. If you cut an operation and maintenance for materials and short-term purchases and labor, non-capital labor items, it's dollar for dollar. It comes out of your budget. Not so with capital. If you cut a $10 million capital item out, and you would otherwise be amortizing that, financing and amortizing that over a long period of time, only a fraction of that hits your actual budget in each year, just like only a fraction of your cost of a home or a car does when you have a mortgage or a loan. So when we started going in and digging in even deeper, remembering that we took almost $500 million of costs out already, that we had to look at the difference between carving out capital versus carving out O&M. So let's dig into that a little bit further. This chart here, and for those of you, it's kind of page 6 on. I think there are copies of that handout, I think, that we've had available. Others who may have seen it online. The top is in blue here is our revenue requirement. Consider it basically our kind of annualized dollars from our budget. And last year, again, it was about $805 million. And again, showing in that next box here was that $889 million that was in our basic needs budget that we've been talking about. If we had a zero rate action by this board, and we just let things alone, the amount of revenue that we would collect is not even what it was this last year. It would be down to, or we're estimating, about $778 million. Well, why is that? I mean, why wouldn't it be just at least the same? Well, in part, it's amount of what do we assume our water sales to be, but what it really comes down to is we have a number of, our rates are not totally simple. We have a base rate, and we have a number of what we call pass-throughs, adjustment factors. And some of those adjustment factors are actually headed down this year, the most important one being associated with our purchased water. We had a great water year. Thank heavens we had a great water year this last year. So we had more snowpack, and our customers going into the year used a little bit less water than they might have because it was raining more than normal. And the net result is we have to purchase, and we know that over the course of this year we're going to purchase less MWD water. And Metropolitan Water District is our highest incremental cost of water, so our rates that pass through automatically goes down, and some other factors that just by action go down if we aren't if we're not incurring more water conservation, incremental water conservation costs, and we're not funding more water recycling or continuing some of our water recycling programs, some of those adjustments go down. So the reality is that by the end of this current fiscal year, next June, our water rates with no action will be lower than they were at the end of the last fiscal year. And in fact, our rates have been going down even the last half of the last fiscal year. Our water rates have been continually going down. Our customers don't often give us a lot of recognition for that, but that's a fact. So we end up without an action, our revenue continues to go down. And as I'll talk a little bit later when we get into what our plans were for our rates and comparing this year to next year, you'll see kind of why our plans were to do that a bit differently. The result is the difference between those two, the basic needs column of 889 and the zero action of 778, is $111 million difference. So we have to come up with $111 million of cuts to make that difference on the water side. Power side is kind of a similar story. Again, that this last year, fiscal year just ended, about $3.1 billion. Our basic needs were almost $3.2 billion, and a zero rate increase there takes us down a little bit on that. The variance between where we were at 3.128 and the 3.014 is it's a $107 million cut in where we needed and where we were. So those are the numbers that we need to cut out as we go forward.
And Mr. Nichols, I just want to stress that you're comparing that to the basic needs budget that we approved and not the strategic investment budgets that we have also been reviewing as part of the rate conversation.
That's correct. That's correct. And there are additional items on the water side, on more water conservation, on more investment in moving towards greater recycled water projects, more stormwater capture, and at least edging towards more cleaning up contaminated groundwater that were strategic investments that we believe that we should make, but are not by law mandated to make, and therefore we were looking to get some feedback from our customers on that. Similarly, on the power side, we're looking for the prospect. We believe we should be doing more energy efficiency than is in that basic plan. We don't absolutely have to in a given year. We do have some areas that we need to achieve by law by 2020. So you could defer it in one year, you can make it up in another, and there's additional levels of reliability in infrastructure, both power and the water side, that we believe that we should do, but are not absolutely mandated in any given 1 year to do. So yes,
so the variances would be greater if we had incorporated those strategic projects.
Absolutely, we would be looking at it. If we were to incorporate those, we would be looking at an even deeper difference between those. That's correct.
And it's my understanding that currently you're doing some research assessment as to the amount of capital it would take to invest in recycling water, putting more emphasis on stormwater capture, to see what would be the initial requirement versus what would be the overall cost savings. Is that correct? That's correct,
and that's a multi-year thing. And we're one of the things that when we were certainly looking at just this current year's budget, it's a 1 year snapshot. When we're out discussing our rate adjustments, we've been looking 3 years ahead. When we're looking at making a change from continuing our reliance on imported water through purchases from Metropolitan Water District versus more local supplies, which includes some of the things you clean up the groundwater aquifer, because that's kind of our local reservoir, if you will, to keep water, and put more stormwater capture in, put more recycled water, do more incrementally on water conservation. All of those things tend to require some upfront investment, the benefits of which you reap in later years. So we're in the process, and it goes beyond certainly a 1 year budget. It really goes well beyond that 3 year look ahead that we're doing. So our water, our water system staff are looking at a much more long-term program to lay that out a little bit more clearly as to what those costs, what those investments are, and what the break-even point is from those investments versus the continually rising cost of MWD water. And we'll be laying that out in some additional public fora later on in the weeks or, well, many weeks, but because it's a lot of analysis, but it will be done this fall. We'll be out and discussing that more specifically.
Thank you.
And it's just as a quick reminder on this next slide here that when we were talking about rate increases for 2011-12 over this next current fiscal year for that basic business needs case again, water was for the entire year was about a 2.5% rate adjustment. Again, this excludes, as Commissioner Parfrey notes, this excludes any of those strategic investments I talked about. For power, it was a 3.8% over the entire year. We were talking about having a November 1 effective date for those rates, so that means you have to collect that whole year in a shorter number of months. So that's where we came up with the 4.2% and the 5.9% rate adjustments effective November 1. If you were to capture that same, undertake these same programs and have that date slip, effective date slip, and still recover the same amount of money over the year, you're going to recover it over a shorter number of months, and the effective percentage rate increase for the balance of the fiscal year simply goes up.
I think this is a really important chart, because I think it's important that on an annualized basis, we really are talking about the 2.5 and 3.8.
Correct.
It is recovery over that contracted period that makes the rate impact more significant.
Exactly. And therein lies some of what we're going to be talking a little bit more about here today, and that is we have to plan going forward with some certainty, what revenue is coming in when. And to the extent that there is uncertainty about that, we have to start cutting costs because we can't just assume it's going to get there. And which is why we're here today talking about this topic, which I think was originally raised by Commissioner Moss and the rest of you certainly
I think there's
agreed
a
with that.
lesson here in the planning process, too, that we probably need to start earlier in moving the rate process forward so we can actually make a proposal earlier in the year, so they could actually go into effect at the beginning of the fiscal year.
I fully agree with you.
The impact of that
Sales.
is this year and next year we could have back-to-back rate increases, right?
Right.
But at some point we need to get on a schedule where we actually we implement the rate increase at the beginning of the year.
There's no question about that, and there are a number of reasons why that didn't happen. Part of it being the fact that we went in for a rate adjustment last year in the spring of 2010, and that didn't meet with particularly good results. And some immediate, somewhat emergency programmatic cuts were made in both renewable energy, energy efficiency, our water capital and O&M programs. And then, frankly, we've had a turnover of general managers, and I came in. There's probably part of that delay I would take on me from the perspective of needing to get our arms around where we were and to get some cuts done, knowing that we were facing still the same types of cost issues that we were facing yet, the year prior. But you're right. We need to get our timing sequenced better. And we need to be able to get information out in front of you as a commissioner, in front of our customers and stakeholders, which is one of the reasons I've been asked numerous times in these public fora that we've held in workshops. Well, why are you sitting talking about 3 years? Why don't we just address this year and not worry about those subsequent years? And that's exactly the reason why. Things that we're doing as a utility, particularly as we're making some of the changes that we're making for LADWP, are multiple-year programs. These are long-term programs that have many steps, a lot of capital changes, meeting regulatory changes that are ramping up, and you simply have to be able to look at these on a long-term basis because they are multiple-year obligations, and you can't step out and start them and stop them. So hopeful that at least giving a 3-year lookout gives us a better planning vehicle as we go forward. Hopefully, we get back on that target to be more in line on a fiscal year basis.
Mr. Nichols, Lyle, excuse me, in light of the slide, I mean, obviously, we're seeing a higher number in November as the months slip on. How soon do you see us taking an action on rates? Because earlier you said you're not prepared to have us do that yet.
Well, I'm not prepared to do that yet, in part because we're getting a lot of good input on the plans, in part because our cost cuts have been a little better than expected, so it's bought us a little bit of breathing room, and also in terms of getting on board with timing for the city council, who is, at least some members of whom is desired to have a ratepayer advocate, and understandably so, would like to have a ratepayer advocate on board to review these things. So I don't have an exact time frame for you right now, because I really want to work with city council on their timing for getting a ratepayer advocate on board on that. And so I'm not prepared to say a specific date. I can tell you pretty confidently we're not talking about a November 1 effective date right now.
Right. So it's at some point, it seems pretty logical that we might be going through 2011, 2012 without a rate increase.
The further we get into this fiscal year, the more we start becoming on this specific schedule. In other words, we start becoming by de facto having to plan of making the types of actions that we're going to be talking in more detail about here today.
Right,
That's correct.
Just to preview, because I've seen your slide, your deck, what are the implications of that?
Well,
that's your segue.
I think I'd like to drill through that a bit and get into what some of those adjustments are. And
let me ask Joe a legal question. Is there anything that would preclude the city council from approving an 18-month budget, a rate increase?
No, not at all. You propose the rate increase, they adopt it by ordinance. So how you do that is anything that you can structure that they would adopt by ordinance.
So when we start looking at what kind of adjustments can we make, Commissioner, to your point, what are the implications? If we were facing this sort of a circumstance, we have financial changes we can make. We have operation and maintenance modifications that we can. These are the tools that we have in hand that you can do on a short-term intra-fiscal year basis, and we can cut project and program costs on the capital side. On the financial side, we certainly look at things such as trying to capitalize those things that are longer-term programs. We've done a lot of that. I can't quite say necessarily we've gotten the squeal out of the pig on it, but we have had previously gone through and looked at things that were truly long-term programs that are more capital-oriented and therefore can be amortized over a longer period of time. We did a fair amount of that earlier before we ever got into our basic needs budget. We've gone back and looked at kind of the second and third tier of smaller items. I worked with Ann Santilli, our CFO, on this, and staff to go through that and work with both the power and the water system on that. You have the ability within limits to reduce your financial reserves. That is, debt service coverage is typically the term of art on that, that you can cut the level of financial cushion or reserves that you collect in rates. But you do that somewhat at your peril. You do that too much, and you're down at a point where you're downgrading your financial situation, which increases your future interest costs. So you've got to be careful how much we do on that. In the power side, we can defer billing customers for past fuel and purchase power expenses, and that's something that utilities do. If they know they can collect it later, you kind of run up and run down on those things, and you ultimately even that out. And as long as you know with some comfort that you're going to ultimately collect those dollars, you can short-term under-collect some of those costs, and we've looked at some of those options as well. Again, as I indicated before, on operation and maintenance costs items, it's dollar for dollar. You save an O&M dollar in that year, it's a dollar you can take right out of your revenue requirements. Capital, different story. You take out $1 of capital and you take out a fraction of that dollar in terms of your annual cost, because you're only taking amortized cost on this. So those are all the types of adjustments that we've made, and they get reflected in what we presented here. On the left-hand side is our water fund reductions. These are just kind of the groupings of them. There's a lot more detail behind that I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with, unless you would like to. I'll give a bit of an overview. But that bottom line number on there is, like I said before, when we looked at that earlier slide, there was $111 million that we would need to be lower than where we had planned to be in our basic needs case. And that comes largely, $88 million out of that $111 million that we can do out of our financial metrics, basically out of reducing our debt service coverage on the water side. And, is this a real advisable thing to do? Well, I'd certainly, by no means is our preference. We basically do. We have long held a good debt service coverage and a very high credit rating for it. Water systems, utility systems, public water systems across the nation right now are encountering many of the same challenges that we are, and many of their financial metrics are falling. To some extent, to the extent that, it's sort of like the story of two people being chased by the bear. All I have to do is be one step ahead of somebody else, and I'm okay. It's kind of a similar situation when you're talking somewhat within limits in the financial ratings world, where if we are reasonably decent on a long-term basis and we are better than our peers, we have less chance of being downgraded, even if our financial metrics have fallen off some, and generally that's the case. So one of the things we looked at, we talked with our financial advisors of how much do we think we could reduce debt service coverage without a huge risk, but still with some risk of getting a downgrade, and that's kind of where we're at. We feel that we have scraped about as low as we could on doing this, and not without the risk that we still might encounter a downgrade.
Well, Ray Sanders, is the $88 million, is that the additional interest costs we would bear if we were to incur a downgrade?
No, the $88 million is the reduction in the amount of revenue that we need to keep in order to maintain a debt service coverage ratio at the levels that we were at. This takes us down to about a 1.65. I don't, Ann, whether you want to add a little bit more color on that.
Well, the current plan that you approved had us at a 2.2 for water, and we're actually taking that down to 1.65. The board approved metric is 2.20.
So you as a board, number one, I said earlier on that one of the things that the test was meeting your current guidance to us that you've adopted in the past. We would have to come back and change that guidance. You would have to take an action to say, no, we're going to lower our financial metrics for debt service coverage for our water system down to 1.65.
But there's risk associated with this because it may result in a downgrade.
Yes, they're very well. There is a risk. I'm not going to sit there and say it's likely to happen. It could happen, and it's more importantly, we're trying to make adjustments of things that are within our control. This is one where it's rating agencies out there in the financial markets in general dictating whether they would agree with us that we should or shouldn't be downgraded. And so where there is certainly a risk in that action.
And the only thing saving us from that downgrade is that other water utilities are in an even worse shape that makes us look better by comparison.
It may save us.
Well, that could save us. I mean, that's the type of thing that helps us. And there's another thing here that too, I think that's important, and this is a little harder to measure, but it comes down to what is the perceived willingness of ultimately, which are the ultimate decision makers are our city council. What is the ultimate willingness of the city council to then ultimately make adjustments beyond that? In other words, if you were to look out subsequent years further, the situation just gets worse and worse. It's not like wine. It doesn't get better with age. If we continue on with the same type of a no-rate action beyond the next fiscal year, the circumstances get very difficult, and at which point I don't think we can show that it's reasonable to assume that we wouldn't then be downgraded later on. And as a result, the rating agencies take into consideration what is the willingness of your governing body, ultimate governing rate decider, to adjust rates necessary. So that's another factor in addition to your debt coverage ratios.
On the debt coverage ratio, how much leeway would we have in addition to reducing the reserve here that you're suggesting or proposing? Not proposing, but bringing to our attention.
Bringing to your attention.
Right. How much can we stave off the ratio reduction by reducing or deferring our borrowing over the next year?
Well, we do reduce our borrowing over the next year as part of these actions that we're taking. Although, generally speaking, we are reducing more in our operation and maintenance costs than our capital costs. Again, for that same reason, you reduce $1 of operation costs, you reduce $1 of your revenue that you have to collect from your customers. You reduce $1 of a capital cost, you're probably reducing somewhere around 7 cents or so of your customers' cost, because you have amortized that dollar over 15 to 30 years. So generally speaking, cutting borrowing costs in the short term doesn't help you much in terms of your actual borrowings in this circumstance, which is why we have a limit. So we have $88 million here that we're getting out of changing our financial metrics, and a total of items from maintenance and infrastructure and security and customer service and other items of a total of about $23 million. So it's very heavily oriented, and there's a reason for that. And one of the reasons for that is Jim McDaniel and his staff did some very, very deep cuts just to get down to our level that we were back when we made the cuts to get $440 million over 3 years. The water system took a lot out back at that point in time. Doesn't remove a lot more of things that we can cut without having multiple year effects. And I won't dwell on that too much. You'll get a little bit of view when we go into this. But one of the issues is many of the things that we're doing, say like on pipeline replacements and some of the things that we're doing on other infrastructure improvements and items related to our reservoir cover work and other compliance with our water quality and our water treatment requirements. A number of these things are programs that we have staff that have to do. And if we start cutting back on those programs, the only way we can get savings out of that is to reduce headcount. You reduce that headcount, you're not going to just pick that up next year. You're looking at years to rebuild that capability again to do some of these things. So that's kind of where we're at on the water program.
So given the operational cuts that are contemplated in this zero fiscal year budget and the program cuts, are you also considering furloughs for your employees?
We have not included furloughs in this, and specifically the reason for that, what we're doing here for this current fiscal year, the fiscal year that just started last month, is things that we can take action on that we know we can move on. A furlough is a meet and confer issue under our union contracts. And I don't want to get into negotiation issues between management and union, but suffice it to say that isn't something that happens overnight, and isn't something, more particularly, it is a meet and confer issue. It takes two parties to discuss these things and how you work your way through that. That takes time, and therefore, I don't have any assurance that I can sit and tell you we could achieve X amount of labor reductions in furloughs by X date, because I'm only half, we as management of the utility are only half of that negotiating duo. So no, it's not included in there. Moving over to the other half of this page on power funds adjustments, again, there's that same total bottom line there of the $107 million. Goes back to that one we were talking about before. That's how much we would be reducing compared to what our basic needs case was for this year, this current fiscal year that we're already in. And on this, again, we have financial item at the top. It's about 40% of that total, about $41 million. And this goes back to that point I indicated in the prior slide, and that is where you are not collecting all of your costs. You're continuing to carry over some uncollected revenue. on a multiple year basis on the expectation that you will ultimately recover that. You have to do that in a level that your auditors are comfortable that you're going to get there, and that you have a reasonable expectation to recoup that over multiple years. Again, it's the type of thing that utilities do. The more you do of it, the more difficult your credit picture is outside. And we believe this is about the max that we could do without causing significant concern about that. And even here, it's still an issue that would raise some eyebrows.
Have the IOUs employed that tactic in times other than the energy crisis?
Well, they do it, well, certainly nowhere near to the extreme that they did in the energy crisis, because they did that to the tune of billions of dollars at that point. And those were clearly pretty extraordinary times, and the rating agencies didn't like it at that point in time, but they were able to understand. Of course, the state of California came in and lent them $6.3 billion on a short-term basis to get there, and then ultimately did $11 billion of a long-term debt issue to literally bail them out of that circumstance. I don't think we have that prospect here. I'm not seeing the federal government and the state of California likely to come out and provide us an extended loan for 20 years. But
So,
carrying up on that, utilities, investor-owned utilities typically have a fuel cost adjustment not terribly dissimilar from the ones that we have that's embedded in our ECAF. And they kind of carry it over on a 15-month basis and kind of true it up over time and such. This actually goes beyond that. This is taking an under-collection and then recovering that under-collection over a 10-year period of time. So it's kind of, it's clear. It's mortgaging your future. I mean, let's be clear. Sorry, Commissioner Parker?
In addition to mortgaging our future, by deferring the maintenance, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be paying for disruptions in service in the future. And by the same token, by reducing the costs of the security, there's a lot of risk involved in that. And so we're making a bet that somehow these reductions won't come back to bite us.
And not only that, we also have claims against DWP as a result of power or water interruptions and other things. And we've seen with Coldwater Canyon, that's an expensive proposition.
Right. Many millions of dollars that we've seen in some of those claims. Each of those other items, I mean, the maintenance, the security, the customer service, and other reductions, cumulatively, that's $66 million out of that $107 million. So it's an even greater amount, percentage-wise, of things that we're cutting out of programs and not just a financial metric out of there. The next few pages, and I'm not intending to go through all of these. They're there. Each one of these pages here takes those items of the financial metrics and maintenance and infrastructure, security, and customer service in these pages, and lays out a bit more detail as to the types of things that are changed in there. But it's on the water side, we're talking about deferring the short-term pipeline repairs and not responding to leaks as quickly as we have been. We're looking at reducing our maintenance of our aqueduct system and cutting back on environmental studies and activities related to the Owens Valley, for example. Cutting back our customer service time, which we're doing that both on the water and the power side, which if you'll dial back a couple of months in terms of concerns we've had expressed regarding our customer service response time, this would make it worse, not better. We would have longer turnaround times on issues related to responding to regulatory compliance, doing analysis of our capital projects that we need to do, work in support of our financings, things like brush clearing and such. We would cancel our contracts and let the vegetation grow a little bit more under our power system lines. There's just things that these are the types of things that just as a utility you don't want to do. And these are digging into things that are going back to your point. Yes, these are the types of things that will come back and bite us later. We'll save money now, but we will start incurring some costs in future years. You can't always predict exactly when. But these are levels that below where we want to be. On the infrastructure side, we had cut back in our basic needs on pipeline replacement from our target of around 120,000 feet per year down to 95,000 feet, and now this takes us back to about 85,000, 86,000 feet. So we're, you know, all of these things are on the water side are going kind of the wrong way. On the power side, we're talking about a $26 million or so cut in our reliability program there that cuts back more of what we're doing. It cuts back our service level response when there are outages. We're not going to be able to get there as quickly. So we'll start seeing during storms and circumstances not being able to respond as well. There's a number of things in terms of having many of our construction projects are going to be more likely to delay in the long term. That's probably going to increase our costs as those start escalating further. Just generally speaking, it's not going to allow us to be as flexible and nimble as we should be. Nice music. The operational on operations, just across the board, is things that we do in our financial services organization in terms of being able to respond to the many things that we're presenting to you here in terms of evaluating budgets and changes and finance options. We're simply not going to have, we're cutting back on overtime, and we're not hiring people back as quickly when they retire on it. All of these things just make us slower to respond and not able to do as much as we want to do. On the security side, we had beefed up our security after 9/11. We would see that going back down. We've already seen some issues where the price of copper has gotten so valuable. We've been seeing some pretty blatant and bold breaking into our facilities as it is, and our security people are trying to ramp up, not down, on some of these things. So across the board, we're just looking at items that takes down our quality of service level and our comfort level on reliability. Would it be to a point where it's emergency? Perhaps not. Is it at a level that it's prudent? Absolutely not. It's not a prudent level to be at. It's not prudent planning for a utility that serves 4 million people. There's a more important, even particularly than that issue, and I think it comes down to how are our customers going to react to this. And this gets a little bit, this goes back to that issue we talked about earlier on about that declining cost. This slide here shows on the left side what we had proposed. We're at about average $3.88 last year per 100 cubic feet for water. Again, going back to our increase for the year was taking that up to $3.98, which was again that average annual. Had we started July 1 of this year, was a 2.5% rate increase. The fact that it's not going to happen then, if it was going to happen November 1, it was 4.2. But since it would be, and then it would be in the next year, fiscal year going forward, fiscal year 12-13. The next fiscal year that we're facing, it would have been about a 6.3% increase. That's what the plan was for that basic needs. Again, this doesn't include some of those strategic investments. But if we did this zero rate action case, that 3.88 continues to decline over the course of this year for the reasons we explained earlier. That's a 10.8%, almost 11% decrease in rates over the course of the year. Nice if you're a customer. Rates are going down, but we're not getting other things done that I mentioned. And as a result, if we were to turn back to that same rate level that we were talking about in our basic needs case in the next fiscal year, nothing changed. We're not doing anything higher all-in cost in that next fiscal year, but it's a 22% rate increase. Because we've gone down, the denominator's lower, and so you're looking at a 22% rate increase. I can assure you, as I'm sitting out in the public talking right now about having 4 to 6% rate increases, that someone's saying if you're looking at a 22% rate increase, I know how warmly that would be received.
And to just reemphasize is that this is the basic needs budget without the strategic investments that this department views as prudent.
That's correct. Right. That's correct. The power fund is a similar situation. In part, I mean, again, going back to where we were, it was average being about 12.7 cents per kilowatt hour, total average of our total system right now. And this last year we just ended, going up to about 13.2%, which would have been on a whole year basis, a 3.8% increase, because we were talking about November 1 that goes to almost 6%. And then in the next year after, fiscal year 12-13, it goes up to 14.1, which would be another 6.9% increase. This is what we've been talking again. The basic needs case doesn't include those strategic investments in more energy efficiency and better reliability and some changes in our renewable portfolio. But if we kept it flat, just kept that flat for there, no rate action, then we're looking at an 11% rate increase to be at that same level. One of the things that we were trying to do in everything that we're doing, in addition to making certain that we had the funding to be able to do the programs that we need to do, is we're also working through to avoid rate shock. And any utility prudently looks at a multi-year basis and tries to smooth their adjustments and move dollars around where you can to try to make certain that our customers can plan for something that's not an unreasonable annual increase, to try to keep that effect as smooth as you can from year to year, and still meet both the operation and maintenance and the capital requirements that our system has in meeting both legal mandates and maintaining a reliable system and making the types of transformations that we're trying to make in both our water supply and our power supply under some of those programmatic changes. So in summary, some of the major consequences that we're looking at if we were looking at a zero rate action for the balance of this fiscal year is that 22% rate increase that we would be staring at a year from now. We do have a risk of a credit downgrade. If we did that, it would increase our rates over not just this year, but multiple years, because we're now at a lower downgraded level. Our interest rates would go up. The pipeline reductions and reduction replacing our pipeline is going the wrong way. We should be increasing the amount of dollars that we're putting in pipeline replacement, not decreasing that. So that's going to continue to put pressure on our fix it when it breaks problem and having those breaks happen more frequently, and continuing to kind of kick the can down the road, as we have done for too long already on that kind of replacement. It's going to decrease our customer service response in an area that we're already trying to do better to have it be more responsive, not less, to our customers. And as we indicated, some of the key issues is reducing security at our facilities on the water side. On the power side, could be a little more dire. We have the risk of regulatory fines for lack of regulated maintenance programs. We have things that we're obligated to do, OSHA requirements associated with some of our equipment that we need to have replaced and people trained on, and items that we're at risk of violating. We have some old generating plants. We're in the process of repowering those generating plants, our gas-fired plants. Part of that is part of our once-through cooling repowering. But that isn't happening for all of the plants in any one given year because we can't. So we're continuing to keep some plants that were built in the 1950s moving forward, and we'll be doing so with fewer personnel and fewer contract dollars in order to get that done. We're looking at extending the life of our poles and our wires and our cross arms. We're looking at difficulties in being able to stay on top of where we need to be in environmental planning, our financial analysis associated with our programs, our public outreach and our energy efficiency programs. We have potential to increase some of the theft and vandalism that we have been starting to stem the tide on a bit with our increased security. Starts going the other direction. That's going to cost us in the pocketbook. Hard to predict exactly how much that would be. And just as with the water system, we would have reduced number of customer service people. That's going to be a problem there as well. We also have things such as a youth program and such that it's going to be hard to justify putting dollars towards those types of programs And, not that they're huge items, it's a couple $1 million, but we were at the point of going through looking at things that are like a $250,000 items, which might sound like big items, but when you're a $4 billion a year annual revenue, those are small items that you're looking to cut, and we've been cutting those types of items to get down to these types of levels. So, in short, this is not where we want to be. This is not a recipe for good planning, prudent planning, and prudent fiscal control and service for a utility of the second largest city in the nation. I don't know if you have additional questions.
Comments?
I do. Particularly as it relates to the water no rate action plan, it assumes that hedging's involved in reducing the financial performance and hoping that we don't get downgraded. I'm just wondering if other water municipalities have tried this strategy and how it's worked out for them.
Well, there other water utilities have been going year to year on some of these things, and they've been seeing some downgrades on that. So I think that across the board, I don't know, Ann, if you've got anything anecdotally. I know that we've seen Anaheim took a cut recently on theirs.
Anaheim took a cut. The LA, the San Diego County Water, they took a downgrade, but it's not just one metric. So to the extent you can show that you have the ability to raise rates, you have cash levels, it's kind of a whole look. So we're just reducing this one metric, but we're hoping that that will still be sufficient because we know others are in the same boat.
Mr. Moss?
Mr. Nichols, at what point, it's kind of going back to my question before, but at what point are you going to start having to make these cuts if we don't get an indication from City Council that they're going to be willing to entertain a rate discussion?
We're already starting to make some of these cuts right now. We're looking even deeper at our hiring to replace retirees. We've been cutting that back. We're looking at whether we can cut that back more. Again, we don't control which employee retires and what function they serve. And as much as I would like to say all of our employees have the same level of criticality to our operations, they don't. There's differing levels, but we don't control that. So we're looking hard at that. We're looking in both the power and the water and our joint system right now of what are the subsequent projects that we have going forward and lining those up to say when is a point in time that we have to pull a trigger, yes or no, as to whether we're going to go forward with some of these projects.
So in other words,
we have to continue to monitor that on a every other couple of weeks, going through and adjusting where are we on these as we decide as we go through.
So in other words, the slides you just showed us and the content of them aren't a theoretical possibility or a theoretical look-see. This is really happening right now as we're talking.
It is happening right now, and if we don't get some comfort level with respect to a timeline of getting this, we will, like I said earlier, by default, we will be on this schedule.
And each month that it goes by, the situation worsens.
That's correct.
Mr. Parfrey?
So, Mr. Nichols, going back to, let me see, it's page 4, and I just want to understand, looking at the power fund, and it's difficult to see on the slide, but it appears that the energy efficiency program and other would be wholly eliminated. Is that accurate? It's colored in a light yellow, so it's difficult to read.
No, that isn't actually the case. I mean, we're not saying. What I'm saying is that total stack is the total cost, and it's not as though just those specific things that happen to be shown on that stack above the line would be cut. We've looked at I have tried, where possible, on these things to not cut those types of programs from the basic needs case. We've been trying not to make those, but going back to your point, virtually nothing, not a dime would go towards any of those strategic investments. Zero.
Right. So, I recognize that even some of the community benefits that the public really isn't aware of, they're very effective, and it helps this utility to have that kind of public face and outreach into the LA's diverse community. And it appears that a lot of those funds would be cut with this sort of the zero option that we're looking at.
Yes, they would.
And I very much agreed with your sentiment that this is America's second largest city, and LADWP is the nation's largest municipal utility. Our power rates are 30% below those of our neighboring utilities, public IOUs. And, it strikes me that we're sort of at a point right now where we're not acting like the nation's largest municipal utility. It's that we need additional revenue to be able to provide the services that we've always provided. And I think that, this generation is not shy of stepping away and investing in our future. And I've said this at prior meetings, but I think that there's almost a breach of fiduciary duty on the part of this commission unless we send a very strong signal that this is not acceptable. And I know that it's a delicate balancing act with City Council right now, but I personally, as a commissioner, feel very uncomfortable moving ahead with this kind of a budget and seeing these kinds of dramatic cuts. And the timeline that I'm familiar with is that there's going to be a committee that comes together by mid-August to begin the process of choosing a ratepayer advocate. And we know how long these processes take, and so it would be almost unimaginable to think that there was someone who is selected and in place and has time to review the financial situation at DWP to make a recommendation on rates sometime before next year. And with that kind of a delay, I see things getting worse and not better. And there will be that kind of sticker shock when people see their rates have to, or we propose to have their rates adjusted. And if we don't get those rate increases, I don't even want to contemplate what will happen to the utility. So I'm just encouraging you and encouraging my fellow commissioners to contemplate perhaps some kind of an interim plan where we approve, this body approves perhaps a small adjustment, and then we can go back to City Council when the ratepayer advocate is in place, where they in turn could look at this this larger need that the utility has.
Other comments?
And just in response to that, and I want to make certain that we don't walk away with this with the wrong impression. I don't believe that we're going to be living with this budget, because I don't believe, we certainly don't want to. We certainly believe the consequences of it, I think, are unacceptable. In fairness, there hasn't been this detailed of discussion on this dire of a circumstance with City Council members. I'm hopeful that they will continue to move forward, on their getting a ratepayer advocate on board. And I believe as this information will get forwarded to the council, President Garcetti has requested that we receive this information, and we will provide that to the council, that there will be some additional awareness with respect to that, and some opportunities to discuss this and look towards gaining a more specific timeline for when this matter can be taken into consideration and work through that. But that's what I would intend to be getting back to you with some sort of a timeline that avoids this problem and finds some intermediate point between that allows us to achieve what we need to achieve for reliable service and achieve some of the objectives that are important to not just the department and this board, but to our customers and stakeholders as well. But it is going to require action in a matter of months, and not something that can get put off till the end of this fiscal year in order for that to happen.
I simply would like to echo Commissioner Parfrey's concern about logistically implementing a ratepayer advocate, getting a budget in place, and the detriments that we face during that interim period. President Sales touched upon whether or not it would be possible to get a temporary budget approved. And in my opinion, I think that's something that we should consider, given those outside factors.
Other comments?
Well, I'll say this. We just witnessed over the weekend our friends in Washington bungle their way through a manufactured crisis, and it seems that there's some parallels here. This situation does not have to be in existence right now. We passed our budget on time, like we were supposed to, and we're ready now, I think, if I'm sensing the tenor of my commissioners, to go ahead and make a rate recommendation to the council. We've been told by the council they won't consider it. That is creating this problem here. So I think that cooler heads should prevail, and we should be looking out for the best interests of the DWP and for the citizens of Los Angeles, and begin to resolve this before it really gets to the point of what you laid out for us today.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. Thank you for the report. Anything else in the GM report, Mr. Nichols?
No, that'd be it. Thank you.
Comments and requests from commissioners relating to DWP operations?
I have one. The AB 2021 requires publicly owned utilities to estimate achievable cost-effective efficiency potential measures over a 10-year period. I understand that we have created a potential study, and I would like to know when this board will have a chance to review that potential study. A second request is that there is currently a Department of Energy rooftop solar grant program that requires applicants to receive the support of their local utility, and it's my understanding that the Open Neighborhoods nonprofit group is requesting DWP assistance in preparing for this DOE grant application. I'd like to know the status of that. Thank you.
Any other requests? Thank you. Public comment. I believe we have one speaker card.
Yes, I have one card for item number 4, Ms. Linda Romney. And for all the public speakers, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
I don't know why there's a total and complete disconnect between what the DWP considers to be of best interest to themselves and that which is the obvious interest to your ratepayers. And that is that your ratepayers have had to live within their budget that's been cut for every single issue. If you're having a problem, what you should do, obviously, is cut your annual costs. I sit here twice a month, and there's at least 25 items on the agenda. Each one of those are at least millions of dollars. Most of them are supplements. Going up to the last one was, what, 87 million, and that was a supplement? Why can't you live within your means? If there has been excess water, then it's obvious, as Mr. Nichols said, that we have water. We don't need an increase in water. It's not prudent. It's not warranted. Therefore, this tier system has to stop. Your zones are incorrect. The San Fernando Valley is at least 30 degrees hotter than it is here in the valley, yet here in downtown LA. Yet you have the same zone for downtown LA as you do for the San Fernando Valley. What does that mean? It means the San Fernando Valley is financing all of the Department of Water and Power for downtown Los Angeles. This has got to change. 21 meetings, there's been 2 in the San Fernando Valley. There was also supposed to be a workshop for the neighborhood council. That was canceled. Where are these meetings? I was told last time by Mr. Nichols there was going to be 10 in August. I'm still waiting. I've asked that there be additional meetings to be conducted in the San Fernando Valley. No, there aren't. Now, the taxpayers, we're going through loss of homes, loss of jobs. The only people that are working is the city. And the city and the DWP is making 30% more. It seems like the unions are breaking the back of the taxpayers. We cannot afford this. your indigent seniors, your indigent disabled had, as of July 1st, a $50 increase on their bill. And that was regardless of the services that were used. They cannot opt out of services, yet you gave them a $50 increase. That means, in effect, that you come out and turn the water and electric off on our indigent seniors and our indigent disabled.
You please
You
wrap
are
up your
killing
remarks.
them,
Your
in
time
effect.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for
That's it for number 4, yes.
public comment? I think we're to item 6 now. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for meetings on June 4th, 7th, 14th, and 21st?
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. There are no speaker cards for any of the consent items. Do any of the commissioners wish to pull any of those items? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve items 7 through 14?
There is.
Second? Is there a
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, items 7 through 14 are approved. Item 15. Who's going to make the presentation on item 15? I believe this is the matter that Commissioner Moss was going to, okay, good. Hello again. Why don't you introduce yourself for the record? And
Reynaldo Desma, Manager of Real Estate. This matter is for renewal of our Canoga Park Customer Service Office for 4 years.
Commissioner Moss, did you have an opportunity to?
Yes, as a matter of fact, in between our last meeting and today, I did have an opportunity to sit down with staff to go over the lease, and all the questions that I had concerning the lease have been answered. And, I think it's, looks like to me like a fair market lease.
I have one question. I wasn't going to pull it but since you're in front of us. I read that you advertised this real estate requirement using a business journal.
Yes.
I'm just curious, is the DWP not represented by a broker that handles the majority of your leases in certain areas?
No, we're not.
You're not. Is that something that's been considered?
We have, but our standard practice is we do not pay commission, so I think if we were going to do that, we would typically go out for like an RFP. I think General Services went out about 4 years ago for something similar where they went out and got bids, and I think they did it by geographical location. So it is something we could consider, but we haven't done that.
It doesn't concern me so much on an 1,800 square foot transaction, but it definitely would concern me on a larger transaction. So is there no cutoff as to if there's a certain square foot requirement that you at least pay a consulting fee to a broker to take you out to the market and leverage a better transaction?
Most of our leases are fairly small, and actually we've been in the process of consolidating a lot of our leases. So I think we only have maybe less than 8 leases right now that are where we're the tenant. So some of our, in this case, customer service offices, we actually own about half of them. Mm-hmm. And then we've had some previous warehouse leases that we're also going to be terminating in the near future. So, I mean, it's certainly something we can consider. And I think you're right. If we have like a 20,000 square foot or maybe 40,000 square foot requirement, that would be something we should do. But none of these that we have so far are along those lines.
So given your background in commercial real estate, perhaps Commissioner Noonan can suggest kind of a cutoff level where it makes sense to employ. But once you make that recommendation, we can consider it. Not now, but
right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that is something that we definitely should consider.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other comments on item 15? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Hearing no objections, item 15 passes. I want to thank Commissioner Moss. But the public really needs to understand that these commissioners are focused on really trying to reduce the cost of the department doing business. They take their individual time, they sit down, they look at leases, even leases that are relatively small, to, at least in their view, assure the department's getting the best possible deal. So thank you for doing that, Commissioner Moss. I know the others have done it on occasion, and we will continue to do that. Item 16.
Good afternoon. Mark Solanchik from Environmental Affairs. This contract is to replace an earlier contract for hazardous waste management services for the department. It's essentially the same scope in terms and conditions as the last contract. One thing that's different is we do have 6 vendors under the naval agreement compared to 4 last time, so there'll be greater competition.
Questions?
Yeah, I read through the contract, and I know it's probably in the boilerplate, and maybe this is for the general counsel, but I didn't see any specific requirement that the vendors comply with federal law with respect to hazardous waste. I just thought that was a little odd that it wasn't called out specifically. I mean, there was general stuff in the indemnification section and some of the boilerplate, but I was surprised by that.
Maybe Rich or Joe could handle a little more, but generally we have standard boilerplate language that covers for all ordinances and laws. I don't know if there's one specifically for federal or not.
Well, you covered trademark infringement, which I don't think really is going to be so appropriate in this contract, but I would think that in a contract like this, you'd want to have some really strong language saying that, thou shalt deliver and transport our hazardous waste with the highest levels. All it said was that there was a reference to industry standards, and I don't think we want to stand necessarily by industry standards.
I know under our task assignments we issue it, we include all that language. It is something we could go back and add possibly.
Yeah, we generally include it in the task assignment when the task assignment comes out. But I can also check with the attorney who handled that contract.
Yeah, is the task assignment usually added as an exhibit to a final contract?
The task item is actually issued when they do the work. So this has a group of folks that are authorized to do the work, and then you send out the task assignment on a case-by-case basis.
But it's legally binding.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if they accept the task,
the task
then
assignment is their authority to do the work.
Okay, that's fine, as long as it's in there, though. I just thought it was a little odd that it wasn't in the contract.
So we will put this up for approval with the understanding that the language being suggested by Commissioner Moss will be in a task assignment.
Yeah, we'll include it in every single task assignment.
Okay. All right, other comments from the commissioners? Is there a motion to approve item 16?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, item 16 passes. Item 17.
Item 17, Commissioners, is a request to amend the administrative code to allow us to enter into long-term biogas purchases. And this is kind of a building in on the existing authority that we have, changing it from 5 to 10, and also raising the ceiling from $10 to $18.
Quick question, Aaron. Does this take into account the possibility in the future, in the next 10 years, where we might be given a green light to move ahead with some of the trash-to-energy pieces in Los Angeles? And can we use this as part of the biogas agreement, or is this specific to the importation of landfill gas?
No, this does allow us to biogas classification, digester, any other generation that could classify under biogas. This will give us the authority to enter into agreement.
All right. In that event, if I may, I would like to move to approve.
I do have a speaker card for this item.
All right. I will postpone that motion.
So there's a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Well, I had a question. I don't know if I'd be out of order.
Why don't we back up? Why don't we have the speaker card?
Okay, the speaker is Chris Fry.
Mr. or Mrs. Fry? Mr. Fry?
Chris Fry?
I'm sorry, there must have been a mistake. I was going to speak on, I think, item Agenda 18.
Oh, 18, not 17? Okay, I'll change the number on here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there are no speaker cards on 17?
No,
Commissioner
not
Moss?
for 17.
Quick question. Any downside to this?
This is giving us the authority to enter into agreements. And just to background on the structure that we have in place, we have a executive risk committee that's under the guidance of the general manager, and also a working committee. And we have checks and balances as far as the risks assessments. And the committee is formed by the operating units and also the financial services. And we have consultants on board, for making sure all the policy is implemented properly. So I think we have the checks and balances, and we've had 10 years of experience implementing this thing. The risk is whatever we've been taking so far, and we see this as just a building up on the capabilities that we have.
Well, to the extent there risk, it's a part of the natural gas.
It's a natural gas risk.
Yeah, so it's no different. And the volumes will be much smaller, I assume, on biogas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's also a big risk that if we don't enter into these long-term contracts, someone else will, and they'll beat us to it.
And it's our RPS issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to appear on?
There is.
Second?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none. Item 17 passes.
Item
Item 18. So we have
Item number 18, if you'll allow me, Mr. President, I'll just give a brief report on the status of what we've done since the April 8th suspension of the program.
Okay.
Kind of give you an update on where we are, and also build in on the workshops that we've done and the feedback that we've gotten and the recommendations in front of you for approval. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and just quickly, I've just summarized, we've summarized the highlights of the package on this PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go through it very briefly. You've seen this chart where we had the massive request for funding on the SIP program, and that's what kind of triggered the recommendation to suspend the program. Since then, we've done a lot of work to fix or improve on the processes that we have. One of them being the funding level. As we've reported last time, we've doubled the funding for this program to up to $66 million per year for the next 3 years in order for us to cover the anticipated demand that we're going to see as soon as we open the program, which is proposed to be opened up in September 1. Reducing the backlog was a big effort that our crews put together, and we've had several crews shifted from other areas to address this issue, and we've brought the number of backlogs from 800 to 0, which included the actual physical installation of the meters that we've had to turn on the systems that were waiting for the inspections, and we've energized 3.6 megawatts of solar energy that was waiting for these backlogs to be turned on. And we've done that, and we've cut more than 550 checks totaling 24 million. The workshops that we've done, there were 2 sessions, and it was on July 14th and 15th, and it was extremely popular sessions that we've had. Over 430 people participate, over 100 people participated via phones, and we've had a lot of good dialogue and input from the community, from the industry, from the residential sector, commercial, government, and nonprofit sectors. They were all represented in these workshops, and we've had great feedback. And what I'm going to go through as far as the proposals that we had on the table and bringing the feedback back to our procedures and then changing it and then bringing it to you as a recommendation for approval. The comment period ended in July 20th, and we've tabulated the feedback, and I'll go through quickly some of the highlights of the feedback. The positive feedbacks that we've seen was in these 3 areas. One of them was the Power Clerk software that we've implemented. This was because of the transparency of the application process and the information sharing. This will allow us to be extremely timely as far as the information goes, and the customers would be able to tap into the system and understand where we are on the process and also get information instantaneously. Increasing of the funding was a fundamental issue. I think Mr. Nichols mentioned that have this the SIP program funded through a capital program, and that will allowed us to double the funding, and this was a positive feedback. We've changed the recommendation on the governmental and the nonprofit sector from 1 year to 3 year period because of the approval process that they have to go through in order for them to implement. And these are larger than usual systems, and we want to allow enough time for the segment to implement projects on their property, and this was a positive feedback coming from that sector. Some of the issues that were brought up, one of the requirements that we have in place will require a permit from Building and Safety before participating in our program, and this was some sort of a hurdle that we've heard customers say that this might be a little bit high of a hurdle for them to cross and we've changed the requirement to require a 60-day period between the time they apply for the rebate for them to pull a permit with building and safety, which allows us to make sure that whoever's in the queue has actually done the legwork for them to design and permit the project, and then that way we can keep the queue moving. The 6-month disqualification period was something that we've gotten feedback that it wasn't sure what criteria would we use for suspension of somebody that has violated several of the concepts that we have in there is, bounced checks, incomplete information, trying to get a lot of hours in, either staff hours or processes in place without really, getting the information complete and getting the process moving. So we put some specific language in there that qualifies, as far as the thresholds for us to trigger the 6 months disqualification period. And that way we can keep on moving with the applicants that are really doing all those things that we require of them. The incentive level modification was something that was a lot of discussions that hovered around this issue. And I'm going to show you a couple of slides and the logic behind why we are recommending to go down to those levels. One of them was the residential incentive, and you could see the two bars that you see on top and the bottom of the graph is the one on top was the original incentive levels that we had in the different steps of the incentive program that we have. The bottom curve that you've seen, a little green color, is the state recommended incentive levels. The one in the middle is the one that we're proposing to do, and we've scaled this in a very structured way for us to bring it from step 5 to 6 to 7 before we kind of parallel the curve that the state has recommended. And this was due for a couple of reasons. We were 110% above the IOUs as we stand on step 5. We are reducing the program by about 32% below where we were, but we're still going to be about 40% above where the bottom curve is. So even though we've reduced the incentives, we're still going to be well above the state levels. And we want to...
Are the IOUs along the state line?
The state line. They're much closer to the state line. Actually, some of them are exactly that same curve that you've seen there.
But just to clarify, you stated that these are state-recommended incentive levels.
Minimum levels.
And our commission received a lot of information from the public on this matter, as I'm sure it's no surprise to you given the great turnout that you received at these workshops. And one piece of information that that an entity shared with us is that the payback period under these proposed changes will be 14 years for a residential customer. And they stated that this would be 40% longer than other major utilities. So do you have any metrics that show definitive incentives being given by other municipalities versus just the minimum recommended levels by the state?
Yes, I'm going to cover that slide,
sorry.
Commissioner. No, but you're right. As we adjust the incentives and assuming the tax laws that are across the utilities, our rates play a role in the calculation of the feedback. The payback period. So as we go from 11 years as we had it before, we're going to go from 11-year payback period to anywhere between 13 to 15-year payback period. So it is going to add to the payback period that we have because we're lowering our incentives. But when you look at another utility that has a shorter payback period, that doesn't mean that their incentives are higher than ours. That means that their rates are higher than us, and that's what's causing the payback period to be less. So I think we've made adjustments, and I'll go through it. There's a page on that issue, and we'll go into a little bit more details on that. On the commercial side, exactly the same, way for us to kind of bring the steps down and kind of hug the curve, as you see the minimum incentive levels on the commercial side. And on the the government and nonprofit levels, again, our recommendations is to adjust based on the incentives and the model that they use in order for us to equalize the benefits across the ratepayers that we have. As I mentioned, the increased funding for the program was very positive, and we've kind of gotten feedback on that. We're going to keep the promise of funding those 3 years with the $60 million level. There was one concern at the bottom on the $40 million reservation. What we put in the recommendations on the guidelines is to trigger a program suspension when we hit $40 million of reservation, which means that we will continue on processing applications that are in the pipeline, and we might hit a cash flow that's different than the $40 million. But as we reach the $40 million reservation, we want to have a trip for the program to be suspended until we catch up on the cash flow. And the reason for that is to stretch the incentive money that we have over the period of time in order for us to realize the benefits of the material and the markets for us to get more megawatts installed in there. There was a question about the leasing versus outright installing the system and the difference in the incentives that we've put in there. Part of the recommendations that we have in our package is that if a residential customer, which statistically last year we had about 1,100 residential customers apply, and about half of them chose to lease the system. And if you lease a system, because the system is owned by a third party, which is not the resident themselves, we wanted to change the incentive of the customers to the commercial level, which is less than a residential level. So if you choose to own the system yourself and put it on your home, you will get the residential, which is higher. It's about $2.80 versus a commercial, which would be something close to $2, because of the accelerated depreciation that third party has, and they have other incentives that they could deploy in order for them to make up for that difference in the incentives. So we're recommending, if you lease a system, to go to a commercial rate, which will equalize the benefits across a residential that owns and a lease company that leases the system to you, and then they can make that difference by getting accelerated depreciation and other benefits that the residents cannot get.
Aaron, can I ask you quickly? I know that we had a problem with a number of reservations being made that then people later defaulted on. Is that an accurate characterization, or were most of the reservations fulfilled?
We have dropout rates. You're talking about not implementing.
Right, not implementing.
We do have those, people putting in reservations, and that requirement that we have in there that they have to pull a permit that shows that they invested money in the design and also the feasibility of the project. That was the reason why we put in there, to make sure that we weed out just people that are just standing in line, but they are not implementing. And there's a time trigger also. If you on the old guidelines, we had a time limit on how long can you stay in the queue before we drop you off. This way, we can get the permit will be our trigger for us to require you to get out of the line, if you're not pulling a permit.
And I've heard this anecdotally, that it was the vendors that were approaching the department through, in trying to get the reservations, that were mostly the leasing companies that were then had a higher rate of drop-off. Is that accurate, or is that not accurate?
I have statistics on the lease versus own. I don't have statistics on the dropout for that category, but we can get that for you. But we will get that information, but I don't know off the top of my head. The next requirement was the requirement that we put in there, recommendation for a 10-hour of operations because of the commissioning period, that we would allow the system to be turned on for them to test the inverter, the wiring, and make sure that everything is put in place before we ask them to shut down the system until we go through the inspection, the proper inspection, and the sign-offs, and then we will stab the meter in and turn the system on formally. We will allow them for a 10-hour period to do that for the commissioning period. And if they violate that period, basically they're turning on a system that has not been signed off, and that's the one that we've talked about, the safety issues and other potential system issues that we would have. We would like to give them enough time to commission, and then we're going to cover the period that we committed as a department to be out there to inspect it and turn it on, and that's on us, and I'll talk a little bit about the staffing in that side also. So we don't want to penalize the owners for having this requirement in and then just waiting on us, and we want to do our part to make sure that we close the loop on that. The turnaround time was something that I mentioned last time, is we've moved a lot of crews in order for us to keep up with the meter installation. We want to commit to the 2-week period that we want to go out there, inspect, install the meter, and turn the system on. If we fail to, on our side, if we fail to do it within the 2-week period, what we've committed is additional resources that we would put on there to make sure that we're always pushing that period within the 2-week period. So we will move crews in there. We will put the meters on. We will inspect for safety reasons. We will do the system inspection. We will stab the meter, and then we will have a second visit to make sure that other requirements of the incentive programs are checked after the system is turned on. So this is something that we've added on our side. We've covered the power clerk issue. We're putting a lot of tools together for customers to have access through the web and through other means, and we want to make that system as robust as possible, and we will keep on improving on that. Some of the questions that has come up, commissioners, from the different sessions that we've had. This payback period was something that was a question out there, and again, to compare us to the other SCAPA members, our payback period is pretty much in line with the public utilities, about 14 to 15 years based on our current rates. But if you look at Edison payback period, that's less than ours. And again, like I said, it's the rate calculation that goes in there that makes that more attractive as far as the payback period. The second question out there is what are we doing for the multi-family units and also low-income segment of our ratepayers to make sure that they benefit from the solar programs? Is that we have proposed the test pilot for the feed-in tariff, which will be used for the multi-family dwelling segments. And we're also the next several months, we want to look at means of installing solar as far as the SunShare program or other programs that will be specifically tailored to the low-income segment. And we will come up with recommendations that will fit that category. The staffing level, I've mentioned that we've had several additional staffing added to the front end of the process for us to take in the applications, make sure the backlogs never get to the 800 levels that we've seen. We're expecting a huge volume as we open the program. We're ready to take it on and make sure we keep some performance indicators for us to keep the program moving. We've added resources at the beginning of the process, and we've added crews on the meter, on the inspection side and the meter side. And I've asked our field crews to have performance indicators that I would bring to the board, as far as what they are seeing as far as workload and how they're managing the field portion of the installation, and I'll make this available to you. There was a question about job creations based on the fundings that we have. We've used the state calculator, to add the direct jobs that was created and also all the auxiliary jobs, and it's about 1,560 is the number that comes out. This is a standard calculator that's used, based on the funding that we've had and the cash flow. And we've had 34 megawatts of solar, including the last push that we've had, powering about 10,000 homes. This is equivalent energy to power about 10,000 homes in the city of LA. The next steps for us is, this is we've promised you we will come back with action items to clean up the backlog and take care of the program and the bottlenecks that we have. And we're asking the board to approve the new guidelines as is recommended in your package, and for us to have this program reopened early September.
Before we go to Commissioner Quartz, I think we have a public speaker on several.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The first public speaker is Chris Fry, and after that, Jim Cahill.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Chris Fry. My company recently completed a relatively large solar project for CBS television. And I think too often we come and we complain and go on. And I wanted to really extend my compliments to your staff, and specifically Kenneth Pritchard and Judy Rolls. Did an extraordinary job, went above and beyond what would be expected of any of my employees or anybody. That they really stepped up. One morning I called Kenneth at 5:45 in the morning as I was getting on a plane, and he answered the phone. I decided to leave a message, so very dedicated all along. Mike Pendleton from your engineering group definitely went above and beyond, made multiple visits out to CBS as we worked on our signage, which was relatively complicated, given that facility. The only comment I would make is that to get a permit, I think that's a good idea, but 60 days might be just a little short, because part of that is out of our control as the host customer and or the integrator. But other than that, I think it's a great program. I think we do work throughout the state, so I do have some comparison of the other ones out there. And I don't go to different board meetings and compliment each one. But this is the only one I've ever been to. But they do stand out. You have a great crew, and we look forward to working on future projects with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Jim Cahill, and after that, Hillary Pearson.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Cahill. I'm the Southern California Regional Director for Solar City. I'd like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to discuss the proposed changes in the SIP program. And at Solar City, we're really encouraged by DWP's commitment to foster the spread of solar power throughout LA in a cost-effective manner. And I would just add that, we know how hard the staff worked on these recommendations, and there's so many good recommendations in there that we're pretty pleased. The residential program is working really well, and it's been one of DWP's most successful programs in generating renewable energy in LA. In fact, residential solar represents 90% of the individual systems that have been installed, and 75% of the solar watts installed under the SIP. Most of our LA residential customers that we serve take advantage of the solar lease, the leasing program, to eliminate the high upfront cost and start saving money from day one. I know myself, I installed my system about 5 years ago, and I had to really argue with my wife to install it, because at that time we didn't have a lease. It was all cash up front, and the payback was similar to what you're talking about. And I always tell people, if you could lease, because you can keep your money in the bank, especially in these economic times. So The availability of leased solar systems, it kind of equalizes the access to solar for people that otherwise couldn't afford it, and it spurred a lot of growth in the residential solar program. When I started with Solar City in 2008, in February, we had 25 employees in the LA area, and we now have 238 employees. So within that period, those are all real jobs that I can give you the names of all those people. So we've had a ton of growth. But the proposed changes would take away the option of solar power from all but the most affluent Angelenos by providing a significantly lower rebate for lease systems and for purchase. Not only that, but DWP is proposing a rate increase. So LA residents would be kind of double hit. First with a rate hike, and second with an incentive program that actually reduces the ability to lease and install solar systems that could save them money. So we believe that the proposed changes would needlessly lock out residents from the benefits of solar power and would undermine the renewable energy goals of the city and the state. And so we're asking that you just not rush your vote on this today.
Could you wrap up your remarks, please?
Thank you. Table the issue for a few weeks until you hear all the comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Hillary Pearson. After that, Ben Higgins.
Good afternoon. My name is Hillary Pearson, and I'm here representing Sungevity Solar Home Specialists, a residential solar company based in Oakland, California. I thank you very much for the opportunity to present comments on behalf of Sungevity as you review the proposed changes to the solar incentive program. Sungevity serves customers in 8 states out of our headquarters in Oakland. We offer a unique online experience with our iQuote, which is a powerful tool that is delivered to customers within 24 hours of being requested and allows them to purchase or lease a solar system through our online process. Of note to our discussion today, the leasing option is by far the most popular option for our customers, with 95% of them opting for the lease option. With an upfront cost averaging anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000, many people simply do not have the initial capital that is needed to purchase a home solar system. A lease option therefore removes this initial cost barrier for many that are looking to go solar. Sungevity has leased or installed 68 systems throughout the LADWP territory, including 26 in the city of Los Angeles. We have found that a majority of these homeowners lease their systems, as leasing does offer an attractive incentive for lower and middle income families. Under the proposal to slash the incentive for residential lease systems by 40%, the zero-down leasing option would all but cease to exist, and the monthly payments would be too high to make sense for many low and middle-income residents and families. The impact of this policy would effectively take the option of solar power away from all but the most affluent residents of Los Angeles. This move would effectively move us back to a time when environmental consciousness was reserved for the well-off. It is difficult to overstate the promise of rooftop solar generation in Los Angeles. It is pollution-free and especially abundant in this sunny region. It's not just good for the environment, but also for the economy. In our work in the LA area, we have partnered with 10 local subcontractors to complete these residential installations. This partnership with local installers demonstrates that residential solar helps to create non-exportable local jobs and revenue for Los Angeles. Solar installations bring new solar-related business to the city, higher tax revenue, including sales tax on the equipment, increased property tax when homes with solar system are sold, income tax from installation labor, and increased spending from homeowners who have reduced their energy expenses by going solar. In closing, I would request that the residential incentive program offered through DWP be returned to the way it existed before, a way that allows middle and low-income homeowners in Los Angeles to go green. Please delay a vote on this by 1 month. I thank you very much for listening to my comments and for considering feedback from the community on these changes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Ben Higgins, and after that, Ethan Sprague.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ben Higgins. I'm here representing REC Solar. We are one of the states, indeed one of the nation's largest solar integrators with more than 6,000 systems installed. We do it all: residential, commercial, utility, customer-owned, leases, PPAs, you name it. From California, we have about 40 employees here in LA, all the way across the country to New Jersey. So we've taken a fairly comprehensive look at this proposal. It is a robust one. It is a serious one that your staff and managers have presented you here today with. And there are many, many positive elements of it. In particular, we like the fact that there are project screens to keep non-viable applications out of the queue. That's something that's been badly needed. We appreciate greatly the move to Power Clerk. That's going to help create transparency, again, that this program has badly needed. We have a very serious concern, though, about the residential incentive levels in particular. You saw on the charts which were shown earlier by Mr. Benjamin, the decrease at the current step in residential from a former $3.25 incentive level down to a proposed $2.20 incentive level. It's about a 30%, give or take, reduction. Certainly, that's not optimal. We think it's, in fact, excessive, but we understand at least where the proposal is coming from, given the financial strain that's been presented to this program. However, at the latter steps, step 8, for example, you're going from a $2.25 incentive level down to 75 cents. That's roughly, of course, a 70% reduction in the incentive. When you look at the level of reduction that's proposed in the residential incentive program, particularly when compared to what's being proposed for the commercial, we find and suggest to you that there is an imbalance here. We suggest, as other commenters have, that you send this back to staff, not approve it today, and have them come back with a more robust residential program proposal. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Ethan Sprague, and after that, Ken Button.
Good afternoon. It'd be great to see slide 6 that had the actual rebate levels on the screen. My name is Ethan Sprague. I work for Sunrun. We just do leases. We just do residences. We're in 9 states. We have over 10,000 customers. We buy $1 million of solar equipment a day. I appreciate Ron Nichols and his staff having us in to hear our feedback. I want to cut to the chase. You guys here are having a discussion about your budget. Homeowners are having that same discussion about their budget. One way they can lock in their prices is going solar with a lease product. It is a lot of extra services other than just the cash purchase. When you compare it to the cash purchase, the lease product has insurance, repair, maintenance, guaranteed production. So the accelerated depreciation gives it a benefit, but there's also a bunch of other services that make it very attractive to customers who don't want to incur other costs. If you look at this chart here, with those high rebate levels that DWP had or has, you would expect DWP to be way off the charts in terms of the number of installs. In fact, DWP is way behind its peers. DWP, there's 1 install for every 345 housing units. Bakersfield, it's 1 for every 63. Fresno, it's 1 for every 100 and something. DWP simply doesn't have the take-up, and you should. A beautiful city, tons of sunlight. Why is that? It's not the high rebate levels, right? It's a mixture of the cost of the power and the incentive level. And by slashing it more for residential, particularly lease customers, you are going to basically tell residential consumers, you don't get sunshine here, okay? You can't go solar here. The FIT program, it's great. I'm sure businesses love it. It excludes anything under, 5 megawatts? I mean, the residential homeowner really isn't going to get a benefit from that. So you got to decide what kind of utility do you want to be. Do you want to embrace residential solar and the myriad economics benefits that come from it? Or do you not want to? And just in closing, I think the issue here, and I think where I understand, is that it's residential applications take a lot of work. There's more of them. There's tons of them. The budget dollars are all going to, are getting reserved by the commercial projects or non-residential. And so I think the struggle is how do you maintain the servicing inside DWP to approve those applications and interconnect those people. And in the context of a rate increase where they can't insulate themselves from those higher rates, having a strong residential program would really...
Could you wrap up your remarks, please?
I will, thank you. Will really help DWP's perception in the community. This is something you can give to residences because you're going to be taking more money from them.
Thank you.
Commissioner, actually just a fact on $45 million was spent on residential and $26 million on commercial so far.
The next speaker is Ken Button, and after that, Michael Groner.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Button. I'm the president of Marengo Solar, and we're the largest installer of solar systems for homeowners in the city. And this all feels very familiar. Last fall, we were here for a different proposal, and just like this one, there were good elements of it, power clerk, and et cetera, that I would applaud at this time. But the problem is the really steep cuts for homeowners and the incentive that applies to them. We felt at the time last fall that these cuts were really going to kill the market that was just starting to get going in the city. And that proposal was approved, and then ultimately it was vetoed by City Council. So now we're back, and this is a new proposal that's even worse for homeowners. It cuts the homeowner incentive by twice as much as non-homeowners, and even more for lease customers. And the question is why? Why is this being proposed again? We've been told it's because there was a huge ramp in the program and it's busting the budget. But when you really look at those numbers and break them down residential and non-residential, most of the application volume in dollars is non-residential. It's not the homeowners that are busting the budget. We've been told that the incentive is too rich, that it's higher than the IOUs. That's true. But we've seen that when you add it and you factor in the underlying rate amounts, that solar is already less attractive for homeowners in LA than in Edison territory. This would make it 14 years for a payback. And that will drain all of the economics. It will make it unsellable in the city for homeowners and for companies like mine that sell residential solar. The department disagrees on that analysis, what the impact would be, but we haven't seen, and I don't think anyone has seen, any real calculations or analysis on why they feel differently. Why do they think that anybody will continue to buy this product if it's a 14-year payback? We've heard that it's because the application volume. Power clerk will solve that. That's not the issue. Basically, moving forward with these cuts is going to really choke the residential program and exclude homeowners from participating. My company, we had to pull out of the city because of the moratorium. We are eager to jump back into the city, but we can't do that in any meaningful way if these cuts are passed because we don't think there will be any adoption from homeowners. So again, like you've heard from other folks, please defer consideration on this for a month to get all the facts right and really consider this. Thank you.
The next speaker is Michael Rohner, and after that, Michael Kahn.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Grainer. I'm Vice President for Administration at Occidental College in the city of Los Angeles. Occidental is in the final stages of receiving permits to install a 1 megawatt array on our campus on 2 undeveloped acres. The array will generate approximately 11% of Occidental's annual power usage. We have received support from Mayor Villaraigosa, from Council Member Huizar, and a significant number of community organizations, homeowners associations, and neighborhood advisory councils. As an added public benefit, Occidental has spearheaded a program with our contractor to offer discounts on home solar installations to residents living in the 3 zip codes that are affected by our solar array. I am here to voice my support to extend the solar reservation for governments and school systems, which we understand would include Occidental College, for an additional 3-year period. At present, we have concerns that any extensions to our construction timeline will jeopardize our ability to get our incentive. Without the incentive, Occidental cannot go forward with this project from a financial point of view. I have one question, however, and that is that will the retroactive extension include preserving the level of the incentive that we have been reserved? Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Michael Kahn, and after that, Andrew Hosley.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Kahn. I'm president of Kahn Solar. We don't do a lot of leases, so I guess that makes us different. We do mostly residential, about a third commercial. I think this program is okay. I'd like to see a higher rebate, but I also want to see a program that's sustainable and doesn't start and stop every year or twice a year. That is bad for the program. It's bad for the economy. having a solar program, a solar incentive program in place is good for the local economy. It's good for economic development. The customers, my customers, mostly in the San Fernando Valley, want solar, and we need a sustainable program that keeps going. I'd like to see this program approved as it is and implemented as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Andrew Hosley, and after that, Peter Parrish.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Hosley, and I would like to express some of the opinions of Solar Forward regarding the SIP, Solar Incentive Program. At Solar Forward, our main concern is the stability of the SIP. Without the SIP continuously operating in a predictable manner, our business becomes essentially a roller coaster. The recent moratorium placed on the program shut down 70% of our business overnight. The summer sun is shining, and the solar industry has been frozen for 4 months, and possibly more. We believe that in order for the program to be sustainable, the rebate should be possibly even lower than what is proposed. We understand that many people, of course, are arguing for the rebates to be higher, but the fact is that we can still do business with lower rebates as long as the program is operating, and that's our main concern, that the program operates. Keeping the program operating continuously is vital for the sustainable solar energy marketplace. DWP needs to earn a fair market income, and the rate structure needs to be updated as was talked about today and proposed, so that the department can continue to operate and a sustainable SIP can be properly funded. So I have other things to say, but the point is we would like the program to be restarted. We're eager for it to be restarted, and we don't want to wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Peter Parrish, and after that, Linda Romney.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to weigh in on this matter. My name is Peter Parrish. I'm president, founder of California Solar Engineering, who has been doing business here in Southern California since 2002, and we've seen a lot come and go on the solar program. Let me give you my bottom line. I think you should pass this revised solar incentive program as presented to you today. There are things that we find very beneficial. There are things that we find that are a little bit troublesome. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is the city of Los Angeles, as someone previously said, isn't breaking any records in terms of installed PV. They rank about 15th in the western United States in terms of installed PV watts per capita or per ratepayer, however you want to look at it, either DWP as a utility or the city of Los Angeles as a city. We're not cutting it yet, but I hope that these new numbers that we've seen in the last 6 months will get us higher in the rankings. So that's number one. Number two, boy, keep the resources that you've recently allocated to accelerate and, reduce the lead times that we've seen, reduce the backlogs. I'd hate to see those people go away. I hate to see us go back to what we had before. And the last point I'd like to make is that I strongly support moving leases from the residential rebate to the commercial rebate level. They're commercial propositions. These systems are purchased and owned by entities, very wealthy entities with large tax appetites. So to think of them as, just because they happen to be sitting on a residential ratepayer's roof, that they're a residential PV system is illogical to begin with. So I think leases are great. We all have trouble raising capital. Leases have their place, but to consider them as a residential proposition just doesn't make sense. The final thing about leases is that I do think that they're a good solution for some people, and I like the idea about the maintenance and the guaranteed production, but they are more than 50%, maybe 60% of this new increased number of applications. So they are part of the management problem that we have, and I think we need to cool them off a little bit, and I'm absolutely sure that the owners of these leases will continue to make a profit under the revised rebates. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next speaker is Linda Romney, and after that, David Jones. Linda Romney?
I believe she left.
She left? Okay. Then the next speaker is David Jones.
Thank you very much for indulging all of us today and listening to our comments. My name is David Jones. I'm an employee of Marta for Solar, headquartered here in Los Angeles. And I was on the roof of the Sherman Oaks Mall, the Fashion Square Mall in Sherman Oaks, about a month back, speaking with an electrician there, Patrick Boyd. And Patrick was installing the inverter on the roof of that building and asked me what the next project was he was going to. And I said, Patrick, the only one we have that we can do is the one in Canoga Park. I've got other projects we'd like to do, one at LAX for the Hertz Corporation, and of course the one that Michael Grainer spoke about at the Occidental College. The proposal that's on the council's table here today does need to be passed. Not only you've got the problem that people do want to have solar on their homes, but they also need jobs. Keeping them working is our primary goal. So please pass the proposal today, and we will keep people working. Thank you very much.
Are there additional speakers?
That was the last speaker card. We can close the speakers for that one.
All right. President Sales stepped out of the room for a minute. He'll be back in a minute. So to follow up, and that minute has arrived. I would like to ask a few questions, and perhaps some of the commissioners at this point would like to ask staff some questions.
No, go ahead.
Please, after you.
Oh, all right then. And thank you to all the public comments. It was very interesting to hear from the actual suppliers and people in the business in terms of what their thoughts are. And also, I want to commend the power system for the work that's gone into looking at this issue. And it's a very good program. I do have a couple of questions, some of which was raised by some of the public comment. What essentially is the rationale for switching the residential leasing to commercial rebate levels?
So some of the speakers touched on it, and it's to levelize the incentives that the entire package has, you know, when it comes to the benefits that the commercial companies would get because of their tax appetite and the way they depreciate and the way they benefit from it. For that to be used just like somebody that goes to the bank and pulls capital to invest in their system, it won't be fair, you know, to levelize the payback and all the other benefits that they've had. So that was the reasoning why we wanted to make sure that the leases are treated as a third-party suppliers, just using the roof as a location for them to generate, and they can take all the benefits that the residential customers will not be able to get if they went funding on their own.
And have you made a projection as to how many fewer residences will actually go in the lease option by reducing the incentive?
So we've done we're looking back on the statistics. Out of the 1,100 residential customers, about half were leases, and we think those numbers will hover half and half. We might even see a spike on the leases, and all these discussions. I think one of the comments that I would add to the setting of the rate. Do we know exactly how the market is going to react? I think we've done a lot of homework and research as far as setting the rates so we can produce the results. But I think opening the program and testing it. I mean, this is not something that we want to just leave and not go back and revise. Within a couple of months, we will come back with some of the projections that we've made versus what actually is happening in the market, and that would be a best a case for us to make sure that we validate our assumptions as far as whether the market is going to go one way or another.
So in other words, if some of the speakers projected that the residential leasing market might crash as a result of this, if you begin to see that, then you'll come back, report to the board,
yes,
and we can reconsider.
Yes, and I think that's That's something that we see in other utilities. I mean, these arguments have gone around in different utility territories one way or another, and I think the market will speak for itself. As we open this, we will come back with some milestones that we thought we were going to hit, and if we don't hit those, we will make the adjustments, make sure that, I think the principles is much more important for us. We want a sustainable program. That we want. We want to create jobs, we want to create the industry, and we don't want to have these stops and starts. Those principles we want to maintain, and for us to do that, we have to have some reasonable balance between all these incentives and making sure that we're always adjusting the program to meet those goals.
Okay, thank you.
I also thank you for the document that you provided us with. However, I'm comparing your document to other documents this commission has received, so I do have some questions for you. One thing that was stated in a document was that under this new program, leased solar power would be more expensive than buying electricity from DWP directly. Do you have any kind of analysis that shows how decreasing the incentives will affect a potential customer's decision to buy solar or not?
To lease, to go into the lease option, or?
Yeah, according to some of the data that we've received from the public, it was stated that leasing solar power would actually be a more expensive option than buying electricity directly from DWP. What's your response to that?
We don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of factors going into the calculations. I mean, the rate of return of their investment and the profit margins and all those things are all on the table, you know, for the market to adjust for that. Again, you know, our calculations is that we don't think that we're going to see a major drawback, you know, on that segment, and we actually see a spike in that segment. But again, the market will tell us what the numbers are. We don't think that's the true statement.
Are there any kind of forecasting tools that you could use to provide an analysis?
We've done the analysis. We'll get you the details if you'd like. You know, the background on what our rates are versus what the market is out there today, and what the market is going to be with the new incentives and what that return is. There's going to be some shift in the inputs of these things. I mean, it's the price of the material is coming down. The you know, a lot of efficiencies is being gained by, you know, equipment and all those other things. Those should be also on the table, you know, for the total price of the system, and also the profit margins and the rate of returns and all those things should be on the market.
Well, personally, I would like to see that information before voting on this for several reasons. Given the anticipated rate increases we're going to face in energy costs, I think it's very important to provide residents and commercial users with options aside from just buying these kind of utilities directly from us. Also, I'd like to have a better understanding of how these incentives support AB 32 and our overall goals and milestones in renewable energy, because I know that solar and wind are two powerful components of that. And I also would like more information in the memo that you prepared, and you did touch upon it verbally. You talked about that you would be looking into enhanced lease programs for lower income homeowners. And I also think that that's crucial in this time and age when we are talking about increasing rates.
Yes. And we will address that portion.
Okay.
And we do the production model that we have. The integrated resource plan includes the number of megawatts that we have in this segment for the greenhouse gases, and we'll get that information to you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Parker?
I have a few questions. So both for Aram and Mr. Nichols. Do you feel that this solar incentive program provides enough incentive to see installations in low-income neighborhoods?
The segment that we're going to develop, that's the area that we still need some work to be done there, that make sure that we come up with some sort of a program that addresses that issue. As it stands right now, the feed-in tariff is going to be a program that's going to be used, you know, for the multi-units and the low-income The SunShare is another program that we're looking at, but we will come back within several weeks with some proposals that will address that issue.
I appreciate that follow-up. And do you feel then, because it's going to take a little while, that we should delay the solar incentive program until we kind of figure out whether the low-income neighborhood issue can be addressed?
I don't see the we need to, as one of the speakers said, the market is waiting for us to open up and get going on some of these programs. And as we go forward, I mean, we're going to do some modifications and we will do adjustments on the guidelines, and that would be part of the addition that we will add for modifying that portion of our program. But I don't think we should, my personal recommendation is not to wait too long on this program. We need to get going, and there's a lot of people waiting for taking advantage of the incentives that we have.
I think we heard that today.
I just like to add on that. I think we have heard with regard to some concerns about how can we better penetrate the low-income market. I think there's a lot of things that affect that. It's rebate pricing, it's outreach, it's how can you make credit work, and what can we do to assist that program. I think those are things that we should address. I think we should address those promptly. But my recommendation is that we do that while we restart the program and look at that as an augmentation or some future carve-out as opposed to holding off the entire program until we get that right. But I do believe we need to look forward and look at all those pieces and make sure we have a feel for how we can better get into the low-income communities, both in terms of providing opportunities there and in terms of providing the jobs in those communities, but not to hold up the whole program in the process of doing that. My recommendation.
May I also bring up a few other points? Thank you very much. The low-income question is very important to me. My understanding of SB 1 requirements is that they're looking for a statewide goal of 3,000 megawatts, and our local goal for DWP is 280 megawatts. And my understanding is that currently we're only at about 25 megawatts. Is that accurate?
34.
34. So through this solar incentive program, our goal is to get to 125 megawatts. Is that my understanding?
That was the initial prorated number.
Is that inclusive of the 34 or in addition?
That's 34 is part of that 125.
All right. So it looks like we're still shy of that 280 goal. Do you have comments on how we're going to reach that 280 goal through the SB 1 funds, or are we just going to say we're not going to hit that mark?
Well, our goal overall is our overall local solar program. So that includes the feed-in tariff of 75 megawatt for feed-in tariff. It includes the additional solar that's above and beyond the SB 1 on local government installation. As well as our utility built solar as well.
And part of the design, Commissioner, was the stepping actually was meant to take advantage of the dollar per megawatt installed as the market picks up efficiencies, and that's what's going to add to the total megawatts installed. So that's more reason for us to really notch down the incentive so we can squeeze that efficiency out of the market.
On the safety questions, I mean, that's absolutely critical. It's absolutely important. I know that we want to make sure that our utility workers are never in harm's way, and so that's the tantamount concern. Related to that, however, is I know that other utilities do not necessarily require a utility worker to go out and inspect and to approve the turn-on. Was there conversation during the process with the solar providers to come up with an alternative way of getting these systems online much quicker than we're doing right now?
That's probably one of the items that's not open for discussions because it's our crews and our workers are on the line, and that's a decision that I have to make as far as what risk we take for them to go online and put themselves in danger. So that's not open for discussion, and we want to make sure that safety is absolutely tight.
Yeah.
One accident is one too many.
All right, thank you. However, one can acknowledge that DWP is atypical in this fashion, that other utilities operate in a different fashion.
We have different voltage levels that other utilities don't have. We're at the lower voltage level with 4.8 kV distribution system,
right,
which is a system that our line we have live work going on there, and those are systems that could very easily turn into a very dangerous situation, for them to be working on their feeding them. On other utilities, they have higher voltages, the 13 kV and 16 kV voltages that might be a little more safeguards might be put in there,
All right. I don't completely understand all that, but I'm taking your word for it, Aaron. One of the questions I have, almost done, is having to do with Councilman Koretz. He is the one who's really been sort of sent back the initial plans for us to work on it again. Have we talked to Councilman Koretz and his staff to get a sense of where they're coming from on this current proposal that's before us today?
Yes, we met with council staff on yesterday, so we'll continue to speak with them because they too have been asked some additional questions about incentive levels, et cetera, so we'll close that loop again today.
All right, thank you. And I just want to make one last point, that if indeed we are able to do what we need to do regarding the rate increases, I think we can decrease that payback period by a little bit.
Mr. President, one more question, please. What is the possible effect on the SIP if we were to approve it today if we don't get a rate increase this year?
The funding for the $66 million was a capital investment. Maybe Ann can explain the funding source.
Well, so I was particularly interested in the additional staff that you were going to be bringing on and all that. Would they be under threat under this program, or we're okay?
The board also approved that the administration and the inspection costs are also part of the capitalized budget.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah.
And they are exempt workforce, which we will hire them for a specific project, and then they will be temporary for that.
Other questions from or comments from the commissioners? I'm inclined to want to move forward with this. We recommend we move forward. I do, however, want to know that you will come back to us in no more than 6 months and update us on the progress of the program, specifically with the impact upon low-income customers. And ultimately, one does not know how incentives work until the program is in place. Right? So I'm willing to give you an opportunity to move forward, assuming you will come back in 6 months. I think we've lost a lot of time already, and for that reason, I don't want to lose any more time. I'd like to get the program started, but it's important that you come back to us and make sure that certain groups are not being excluded or disproportionately impacted by the changes. So that's my 2 cents. Any other comments from the group? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, the item passes.
Everyone's looking at me.
You were leading.
Just for the record, I stated that I was really against moving forward on the matter for the reasons that I stated. But at the same token, I respect your comments about needing to have a program in place so that current projects that are tentative can move forward. But I do appreciate you making this a priority and addressing it within 6 months.
We will get that information, Commissioner, to you to your satisfaction.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, if I can make one comment on the staff and everybody that has worked on this, they did really put a lot of hours and a lot of good faith went into making sure that every comment out there was addressed with dignity and a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of details. The power staff has done a lot, but also the public relations staff, Carol Tucker and George Romalo and Wendy and everybody that has been really pulled together as a team to make sure that the public was heard, the information was processed, was shared, and this product you see is truly a collaboration between every segment that you see here.
Well, I'd like to congratulate all the collaborators because it really was a good process. We look forward to hearing from you in 6 months. Item 23, I think we have a speaker. No, we item 23?
Okay, we're going to take 23 out of order and then go back to 19? Right? Because we do have a 19.
19 comes at the bottom of the sheet.
Oh, the numbering, okay. So, okay, I'm sorry, let's go with item 19, excuse me.
Okay. Okay, item 19, we have one public speaker. DeMarlo Sims.
Have a seat. Are you the our public speaker?
He is the, I believe, the representative for ACE, who is the grievant in this matter, yes.
My name is DeMarlo Sims. I'm representing the Association of Confidential Employees.
Welcome.
Before you take the vote on the PRC's recommendation, I would like you to consider the following. Nowhere in the PRC's report is it mentioned that Ms. Garcia, in a March 2nd, 2011 meeting, admitted to working both desks, the UA4 desk and the Director of Labor Relations desk. This admission by Ms. Garcia is very revealing and is at the heart of ACE's complaint and should not have been left out of the PRC report. The PRC conveniently sidestepped the issue and hid behind civil service rules. Therefore, ACE asked the question, is the department willing to work ACE members out of class, which is inappropriate, and hiding behind civil service rules? The PRC acknowledges that Ms. Garcia did take on some duties and perform the duties of the Director of Labor Relations. However, it argued that the duties were consistent with UA4 duties. If this is so, there was no difference on how the Labor Relations Office was ran and operated from the time that Mr. Lacatus, the Director of Labor Relations, retired until Ms. Garcia was appointed Director of Labor Relations. This does not constitute a performance of some duties, but all duties, which begs the question, why fill the Director of Labor Relations position at all? The PRC is indifferent to ACE's position and puts ACE's members in a precarious situation. If they're directed to work at higher level duties, they violate the civil service rules. But at the same time, what should an ACE member do? If an ACE member does not work the duties, it may be perceived as insubordination or not being a team player. And finally, the grievance is similar to a grievance filed by Management Employees Association. Management or the PRC doesn't want to acknowledge that there is a problem in the running of the Labor Relations Office. At the very least, it is fair to say that the PRC or the board should look at how Labor Relations Office is ran. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's going to present this item? We have our committee of the board, but there should be someone from management, right? Well, if no one's here, we'll have to defer the item.
No, I don't know if that's how
You don't need to
Yeah.
defer the item. You can accept the report. You don't need a
How do the
formal
members of the committee feel?
presentation.
Well,
on it.
the Personnel Relations Committee, met on this matter, took it absolutely seriously. We listened to the representatives from ACE. Need to bring something to the attention of the board members. The group representing ACE are the very personnel that provide the briefings to the Personnel Relations Committee on representing the department. So when you're asking for the department to represent itself, you're actually asking the ACE employees wearing another hat that would be making the presentation against their claim right now. So this is an extremely delicate matter having to do with the very people that we trust and rely on to bring the grievances and to help us decide on how to go forward on them. And so I just want to assure our other commission members how seriously we took this matter, how carefully we deliberated on it. And we felt that with the guidance from the city attorney's office, we decided to decline the grievance.
Commissioner Newton?
Commissioner Purphy summarized the situation perfectly.
Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the report.
The recommendation.
the recommendation.
Is there a second?
There is.
Any objection? Hearing none, item 19 is approved. There is a speaker card for item 23 also?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the speaker is Linda Romney, but I believe she left.
Ms. Romney?
Ms. Romney,
You want
you
to check
still here?
outside, officer, just to make sure?
Yeah, I think she's gone. Okay,
Thank
that
you.
was the only speaker card for 23.
Okay, do any of the board members have any questions on item 23?
I do not.
Me neither.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
There is a motion to approve.
Second?
Any objections? Hearing none, the item passes. Okay, we're on to filed items now. Any,
Yeah,
sorry,
Yeah, I was just saying yes on the filed items.
yes. Any comments on item 20A, financial services report? Not, it's deemed filed.
I do have a quick question. Typically, there's additional data that is provided to board members that was not included in this report. Could you comment on that, please?
Sure. Financial Services prepares 2 monthly reports. The one that's before you is the monthly cash activity report, and then we prepare a second report for the activities overall as far as our financial performance on key issues or taxes paid and things like that. So this cash report is a monthly item that stands alone, and then on the next board meeting we'll have our activities report.
We typically have 2 meetings a month, and we don't have a second meeting in August. So if I may make the request that the board secretary could perhaps forward to us your second report, that would be most helpful.
We will do that. We are in the process of closing June, so it is a little bit delayed.
Good idea. Any other comments on the financial services report? Not deemed filed, the monthly reports, water or power. Any comments? Not deemed filed. The information reports, there's one on water quality regulatory compliance projects.
No questions.
Deemed filed. I think we are ready to go into closed session unless I've missed something.
We just need to say that we're going to be filing the management report under item 21.
Okay.
Okay, and then we can go into closed session.
So at this time, we'll recess into closed session, and in accordance with the California Government Code, we will report any reportable action taken therein.
So why don't we just stay here, if that's okay with the group?
Great.